Alright guys, gals, and everything in between. I was doing those week-by-week episode discussions. Things just got so crazy, wasn't able to do those, so I'm just going to review the season as a whole. Better Call Saul, Season 1. Better Call Saul Season 1, it's basically it is, in fact, the spin-off show of Breaking Bad, but this follows the lawyer, Saul Goodman, before he became Saul Goodman, so he was still Jimmy McGill. And this takes place a few years before Breaking Bad. So, he's a deadbeat lawyer. He's not successful. He's basically working out of a utility closet of a spa salon type place because that's all he could afford. And so he stumbles across a potential case that could spring him into greatness. And now we have our first season. There will be maybe some light spoilers, but not too many. I want to try and stay spoiler free just in case some of you just want to know what this season was like as a whole. So, Better Call Saul Season 1, it starts off with a punch, and I like the way they ease you into this show. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, they eased you into Breaking Bad mode where it's like, oh, I'm hot off of Breaking Bad, but, this is a new kind of show. And so you see a lot of the very similar aesthetics at the beginning of the show, and then as the show progresses, it gets less and less Breaking Bad-ish, and gets more into Better Call Saul. And I like that because it didn't just jar you with a new style. It immediately starts off with these fun Easter eggs. It really gets you into this Breaking Bad type mood, but it's all about Saul Goodman. And the beauty of this show is, so far, it's able to stand on its own. I've really enjoyed Better Call Saul in that sense. I love Breaking Bad. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. But Better Call Saul, it actually stands on its own to the point that I'm not sitting there going, where's Walter White? Where's Jesse Pinkman? You always will naturally have those thoughts, but it actually is able to stand on its own because you care so much about the characters they have. They do bring character to, of course, Saul Goodman, and then Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad. Those ones are regular occurs on the show, and those were some of the most loved ones, so you kind of get this nice, cozy familiarity. We have our villains, and our villains, there's sort of two villains. There's sort of like a cartel guy who was Voss in Far Cry 3, and you have the douchebag lawyer played by Patrick Fabian. He's big and successful, who works with Saul's brother, and they have this interesting tension because they kind of work together, but they really don't because Saul's out on his own. And they have this really great, like, we're friends, but we hate each other at the same time kind of chemistry, where they're like, oh yeah, hey man, how you doing, you little dick? Mike Ehrmantraut in the show, he's absolutely amazing, and he has an entire episode dedicated to him, and that episode is heavy. Because mostly Better Call Saul is actually a very humorous show, but when it hits the Mike Ehrmantraut episode, you're just like, oh my god. Brings you back to that Breaking Bad, we need to be depressed for a week feel. And one thing that I love with this show is because it does take place in the same universe as Breaking Bad, the cinematography is incredible. But one thing that I love is that it's able to stay unique enough that it does stand on its own. The way I can explain this show in familiarity, even though I don't like to use these as like my fallback for explanations, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, you can watch Iron Man 3 and you can watch Thor: The Dark World, and you know that they are in the same universe. And you're like, okay, they're in the same universe, I'm not seeing Iron Man, but I don't need to see Iron Man. And you're perfectly okay with that. You then see Guardians of the Galaxy. You know it's in the same universe, you're okay with that. And you don't see the other characters until, obviously, the Avengers. That is the same way with Better Call Saul. It fits into this universe. You know that Walter White and Jesse Pinkman are out there somewhere. They're not presumably together yet. All of them are out there. They're in the same area that they were before. It's just that it's all about Saul, and it's his adventures. You're okay with it, and that's the beauty of it, is you don't need to have watched Breaking Bad to watch this show. There's going to be some Easter eggs that are in there. There are going to be references, and Breaking Bad fans will get it, but those of you who didn't watch Breaking Bad, it does not impair it. You don't need to see Breaking Bad in order to watch this show and enjoy it. It's the same as you can watch Thor and not watch Iron Man, vice versa. Like, it does not matter. There are just subtle references, and I like that. My big complaint about the show is that at about the 2/3 of the way through mark, the show, it had somewhere it was going, but it kind of falls flat to me. That it felt like that they were supposed to have a longer season, because it's only a 10-episode season. I know that it got renewed for a season 2, and it's going to have a longer second season, but honestly, it felt like they were just told they had to release a first season now. Because you're going, you see the end game, you're like, oh, there's the bad guy, okay, and then no, come on, you're not done yet. Go. I was sitting there watching the finale going, what? Okay. And, it doesn't detract from the fact that the show is still great. It's just that it doesn't feel like a complete season, and it feels a little oddly paced, because you have this fairly cruising along thing, and then it just sort of stops. And you're like, oh, okay. And, maybe some people it's a great ending, I'm thinking. I bet it has more than what I'm reading on, but I've watched the show, I've watched it all the way through, every episode, and sat there and said, yeah, no, that's not how you end a television season. And I felt, it felt a little bit like you were being gypped out of a few episodes. But of course, season 2, they are going to explain it, so if you're watching this on Netflix in like 3 years, woo, you can just skip on, and it'd probably be one of those moments that you didn't even realize you're on the next season. And so it's one of those. But in the end, I absolutely still loved Better Call Saul. I think it's one of the best shows on television right now, and that is a very rare feat. And that is a very rare feat for a spin-off show to be able to be one of the best shows on television and not necessarily live up to Breaking Bad, because obviously we can't really compare the two because they're a whole thing and then just a smaller one right now. But you feel that, you just see the quality, you see greatness in it, you see where it could be. And you see that it could potentially be a show as good as Breaking Bad. It's got the humor, it's got the drama. The Mike Ehrmantraut episode is one of the best episodes of television, period. And in the end, I absolutely love the show. I do have an award that I'm now giving out for the first time on my YouTube channel, that Bret Michaels would indeed approve of this show because it does talk dirty to me. Oh yes. I'm 80s rock fan, and Talk Dirty to Me, iconic song, and this is the Talk Dirty to Me award. Yeah, this show just hit me right in the spot that makes you just have that, ooh yeah. I love the show. I absolutely think that season 1 is not as high as like a future classic rating, but I say this is a must-see. And I'd say a must-own on DVD. But what have you guys thought of season 1 of Better Call Saul? Did you feel that it wasn't a full season? And just tell me your thoughts. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, please. And till next time, love you guys.